Hello and welcome to Candidate Conversations. Thank you for joining us. I'm Michele McCray, Community Engagement and Member Services Coordinator at DCTV. I'm thrilled to be your host for Candidate Conversations. Our role at Candidate Conversations is neutral. DCTV is a bipartisan nonprofit organization serving as a community convener. Our goal is to give the community an opportunity to get to know the candidates by allowing each to present their platform to the community. In this era of COVID-19, providing DC residents the opportunity to get to know the candidates from the safety and comfort of their television viewing location is more important than ever. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with candidate Brooke Pinto, running for the office of DC City Council Member Ward 2 for the general election. Welcome, Candidate Pinto, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Michele. Great to see you.
So let's get started. Our first question is on the topic of DC statehood. Should the District of Columbia become the 51st state? Why or why not?
Absolutely. Statehood is so important for our representative democracy. We have over 706,000 residents in the District of Columbia that deserve a say in the future and the direction of our country. It's not only important to have a voting right in the Senate and in the House of Representatives, but it affects so much that we do here in the district. It affects our criminal justice system and our parole board. For example, if somebody is sentenced to 1 day over 1 year in prison, they could be sent anywhere in the country. And many folks don't have access to families to visit them while they're serving their sentence. And then we're surprised when our recidivism rates are so high. We need people to be serving their time in the community that they're going to be returning to. We've also seen Congress overstep in a large way when we're seeking to pass budget measures around clean needles or legalizing cannabis or using our local funds for abortion coverage. And it's incredibly important that we have our local leaders decide what we use our tax money for and that we achieve statehood. And I'm so excited for how much momentum and progress we've made recently, and it's seeming much more feasible in the next couple of years.
Our community and our world are currently fighting a major pandemic. As a community leader, what would you do to address the range of issues caused by COVID-19?
Well, COVID-19 and our recovery is the #1 thing that we work on every day on the council, and we are continuing to engage in a number of recovery efforts to ensure that our small businesses have what they need to bounce back. We've already seen so many of our local businesses close, to ensure that our schools are equipped with PPE so they can open come November 9th, because our students are currently engaged in distance learning, to make sure that we have adequate testing, improving access to rapid testing, and ensuring that our entire community can both be kept healthy but also receive the economic support they need to recover from this terrible crisis that has had such a disproportionate effect on our Black and Brown communities and folks with lower incomes. And it's very important to us at the council that we're making sure we're not just recovering in a manner that gets us back to where we were last year, but building back in a more equitable manner.
As a leader, what steps would you like to take, if any, to achieve a just, equitable, and inclusive city, and why?
Well, it is so important. You know, we've taken a number of steps just this month. I co-introduced legislation with my colleague, Councilmember McDuffie, to prioritize our local minority-owned businesses for additional grant money, to ensure that our local business programs are incentivized to stay here and to thrive. It's incredibly important to us that we increase our outreach to our at-risk students and ensure that they are having access to not only technology but to internet, and that there's follow-up and follow-through with their teachers and our local leaders to make sure that our students, many of whom for whom school is a safe place for them to learn and get fed, and ensuring that people aren't falling through the cracks, especially while they're learning from home. So this is our number one focus, and I have been honored to partner with the agencies involved in the executive's office, as well as all of my colleagues in the council, to ensure that our community can build back in a just and inclusive manner.
We appreciate your response. Now, Washington, D.C. has a long history as a leader in providing early childhood education and leads the nation in access to pre-K for both 3- and 4-year-old children. The district is investing over $100 million to expand early childhood education. What do you see as the most important education priorities for serving these young constituents?
Well, it is incredibly important. I think most people in the city agree that increasing access to childhood education touches everything else that we do. It addresses all of our other inequities. It ensures that every child has a true chance to succeed. And when we do not provide those opportunities for our children, it leads to increased crime, it leads to increased poverty, it leads to increased people being pushed out of the city. And so it is the most important challenge that we tackle. Now, we see over and over again a spoken commitment for early childhood education, and yet an absence of adequate funding to actually support those programs. So I think we need to increase our access to funding and supply of funding to our Birth to 3 program. And we need to ensure that we have access to childcare, especially right now during COVID-19, when many families are either working from home and need to sit with their young children while they engage in distance learning. So the parents working from home are not able to adequately really do their jobs, or essential workers who are leaving the home and having to work outside the home but don't have adequate access to childcare for their children. And that is an untenable situation and choice. We were pleased to be able to put an additional $5 million in this fiscal year's budget to pay for additional childcare expenses, but it's still not enough. And so we continue to focus on ensuring that every child has access to childcare education, hopefully in person, but during this interim time, to ensure that our children have what they need to succeed and get educated. And it's so important for their social development as well, to be around other children and engaging in human contact. And we're very worried the years long of unintended consequences and ramifications of not getting this right now.
Candidate Pinto, in the last few moments we have left, tell us what additional information would you like Washington, D.C. residents to know about you?
Well, it has been the honor of my lifetime to serve as the Ward 2 council member. I was sworn in, as you know, at the end of June for a special election to fill the term the rest of 2020, and I was so proud to win the Democratic primary also in June, to be the Democratic nominee in the general election on November 3rd. And I am very focused on increasing our support for our small businesses to get them back on track, to improving our criminal justice reform efforts from after-school programming all the way to expungement and record sealing, and increasing our access to affordable housing and adequately addressing our chronic homeless population. And I am very committed to a just recovery, not only for Ward 2, but for our entire city. And I hope that everybody gets out and votes, no matter who you vote for. We have a lot of important races this election, from the presidential election to Ward 2 race to at-large council, State Board of Education, our advisory neighborhood commissions. And so please look out in the mail. Every registered voter will have received by now a mail-in ballot. If you have not received it, please reach out to the Board of Elections at 202-727-2525. And you can also vote early for an entire week, October 27th to November 2nd, or on Election Day on November 3rd. But the safest way to vote is by mail, and I hope that I can earn your support for re-election. And good luck. I know it's a really tough year, but we're going to get through this, and we're going to come out stronger as a community.
Certainly, we've enjoyed talking to you. We appreciate you coming on our show, Candidate Pinto. All the best to you in the coming election.
Thank you, Michele.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Washington residents are being threatened by utility scams each day. Utility companies typically don't show up at a home or business without an appointment, and they don't threaten to disconnect service without warning.
I've been authorized to disable your gas for overdue payment.
If you're faced with a situation like this, stay calm. Don't let anyone inside your home. Then call the number on your utility bill to verify charges, and contact the Public Service Commission or the police to report scammers. Fight utility scams. The power is yours.
Hi, I'm Alvin Jones, native Washingtonian and president of AJ Productions, and also the managing partner of the Alvin Jones Communications Group. You may know me from my work at Black Entertainment Television as the Unseen VJ, News Channel 8, Planet Vehicle, Planet Jazz, The Quiet Storm on WHUR, Sirius XM, and C-SPAN. But what you may not know is that I got my start in media communications right here at DCTV as a member. DCTV has been serving the DC community for more than 3 decades by preparing members throughout this region for careers in media, whether it be in front of or behind the camera. And also the education training program is comprehensive, and you can even gain access to the equipment and the resources that a creative person needs to bring a vision to a production reality. So that's my DCTV story. DCTV is meaningful media making an impact.
Welcome back. You're watching Candidate Conversations on DCTV. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with candidate Fred Hill, running for the office of DC Council Member for Ward 8 in the general election. Welcome, candidate Hill, and thank you for being here.
All right, thank you.
So let's start. Our first question is on the topic of DC statehood. Should the District of Columbia become the 51st state? In your opinion, why? Or why not?
Absolutely. For far too long, our residents in Washington, D.C. have not been counted as we should have been for so many years. There's dollars that should be coming to us as a state. There's representatives that should be accounted for throughout the residents of the district, small businesses, large businesses. And it's high time that the rest of the country recognizes that with taxation without representation is no good. It harms too many of us in this city, especially in my ward. And it's time that now we get the rightful position of being a state just as anyone else. We also spend a lot more money than many people who are states, or they get more money than we do. And it's time that we make that change.
Thank you. Our community and our world are currently fighting a major pandemic. As a community leader, what would you do to address the range of issues caused by COVID-19?
Thank you. The first thing that we need to keep in mind is that we all should be following by wearing the PPE material, the protective material such as masks. We need to follow more seriously the social distancing and protect those around us by doing that as well as for ourselves. But the things that we need to keep in mind is that there are dollars that need to be invested. In my ward, in Ward 8, it's a low-income area. The average salary of Ward 8 residents right now is around $32,000. Many of these families cannot invest further into living already below the level of the average median income. So our government needs to do what it can to make sure that all people are protected, not just a few.
Thank you. As a leader, what steps would you like to take, if any, to achieve a just, equitable, and inclusive city, and why?
Well, we have to remember that right now in Ward 8, As I just mentioned, the average salary of being $32,000. We need living wage jobs and career opportunities. We need more inclusion for our small businesses. Right now, there's been an attack, a horrible attack on small businesses and their employees. In Ward 8, we lost 134 small businesses before COVID hit. And those businesses, some of them had been in business from 10 to 12 years, having on an average from 8 to 12 employees. And when one of those employees loses their job, it's not just that employee, it's a whole family that's affected. I am a strong advocate for small business development and to make sure that the city contracts that are available go to reach the people that it should touch. Right now, we have a horrible situation where out of the $890 million that was invested last year with CBEs, over 50% of that money went to the same 10 contractors. And that is just abominable. We have another portion of that 50%, the remaining 50%, did not live or work here in the district. And so I intend to make sure that we all are included.
We appreciate your response. Now, Washington, D.C. has a long history as a leader in providing early childhood education and leads the nation in access to pre-K for both 3- and 4-year-old children. The district is investing over $100 million to expand early childhood education. What do you see as the most important education priorities for serving these young constituents?
Well, we definitely are appreciative that the city is the leader in pre-K education support, but there needs to be more. This sets the tone for more of our residents, parents, to engage in living wage job opportunities where they can thereby do more for their family. But it extends a little further because we also have a different challenge. As these children, our young professionals, get older and entering into high school, we need trades back into our public school system to continue what we started with pre-K. Right now, that's not happening. We have a few schools in Ward 8 that provide the trades, one in each, and they say that the children can go to other schools throughout the city. The problem is, from Ward 8, many of our kids can't even go to the next school. So we need to make sure that we have a more fair process of educating our kids in the trades. What I propose is that we move the teachers and not move the students. It's an easier thing to do, compensate those teachers well for what they're doing, and give them assignments that can spread out across the whole city, not just one sector of the city.
Now, Candidate Hill, in the last few moments we have left, tell us, what additional information would you like for Washington, D.C. residents to know about you?
I'd like the city to know that I am a business owner of 25 years. I own 16 different companies in 6 different states. Washington, D.C. is my home. Anacostia is where I've lived for the last 25 years. And I bring the experience for a Ward 8 councilman of knowing how to not pay $12 for a $2 brick, especially on these construction projects. When we talk about where the money going to come from for various programs, this is the single most problem that we have in the city, where we have the expenditures going out the door like crazy. So we have to have better money management amongst them, and those skills that I have. I'm also a veteran. I served in the United States Air Force, and I bring with the experience from that timeline in the Air Force of knowing how to do certain things and having the courage and the understanding of how to move through the challenges that we have right now. And it's time that we make a change for the people in Ward 8, and I'm that change.
Certainly, we thank you, Candidate Hill, for coming on our show, and we're hoping all the best to you in the coming election.
Thank you. Thank you.
My life was in shambles, and I was trying to figure out how to pick up the pieces. AA not only keeps me sober, it helps me live a much better life. If you have a problem with alcohol, contact AA. It works for me.
Wash your hands, avoid sick people, and touching your face. There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. Brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Texting is a great way to communicate, even for scammers. And it's pretty simple for them to steal your identity. If any bill collector contacts you, making demands or offering refunds by text message, wait. Don't share any of your personal information, such as account or social security numbers. Hang up and call the provider back with the number on your monthly bill to confirm any charges. Contact the Public Service Commission or the police to report scammers. Fight utility scams. The power is yours.
Hi, my name is Adrienne Quinn. I'm a freelance camera operator, producer, and director. If it were not for DCTV, I would not be where I am today. A few years ago, I transitioned careers. I was referred to DCTV during that time as a place to just see if this was what I wanted to focus on and return to school to study. I was fortunate to build a foundation of skills through the classes, state-of-the-art equipment, and volunteer experiences. Now, I am making a living doing what I love. This is my DCTV story. DCTV is meaningful media making an impact.
Welcome back. You're watching Candidate Conversations on DCTV. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with candidate Randy Downs, running for the office of DC City Council Member Ward 2 in the general election. Welcome and thank you for being here, candidate Downs.
Thank you so much.
So let's start. Our first question is on the topic of DC statehood. Should the District of Columbia become the 51st state? In your opinion, why or why not?
District of Columbia should become the 51st state. We know that the residents of the District of Columbia deserve a voice in Congress. And I'm hopeful that when the Democrats win both the Senate and the presidency, that we make this a priority for our democracy. Our democracy will be stronger when we have a voice in Congress.
Our community and our world are currently fighting a major pandemic. As a community leader, what would you do to address the range of issues caused by COVID-19?
We know that COVID-19 has revealed deep inequities in our society, so we need to be sure to be addressing those. But first, we need to make sure that our residents are safe by wearing a mask, by social distancing, and listening to the public health officials. We know that we can make this through, and we must do it, and we can be stronger on the other side.
As a leader, what steps would you like to take, if any, to achieve a just, equitable, and inclusive city, and why?
We know that DC is a proud, progressive city in many ways, but at the same time, we have deep inequities in every ward and across the city. So we need to do more to make sure that everyone has a chance to succeed. That includes investing in quality educations so that every student and family has a fighting chance. That means investing in public transportation so that workers and families can get from destination to work, to school, cheaply and affordably. And we need to continue to invest in housing so that everyone in DC has the opportunity to stay here, and new folks has the opportunity to make DC their home.
We appreciate your response. Now, Washington, D.C. has a long history as a leader in providing early childhood education and leads the nation in access to pre-K for both 3- and 4-year-old children. The district is investing over $100 million to expand early childhood education. What do you see as the most important education priorities for serving these young constituents?
We know that ages 0 to 3 are the most fundamental in the development of children. And so I'm proud that we are investing in families and children to make sure that every child and every family has an opportunity to succeed. And that means we need to continue to invest in the Birth to 3 program. We need to continue to invest in early childhood care programs so that we are growing and succeeding as a city.
Candidate Downs, in the last few moments we have left, tell us what additional information would you like Washington, D.C. residents to know about you?
I'm Randy Downs, and I'm running for Ward 2 District Council because I believe we need ethical, bold leadership. Someone who has a deep record in the community, has significant accomplishments, and someone who knows the people and the issues. And I believe that DC residents deserve an opportunity to have a council member who knows the community. And so I'm asking for the Ward 2 residents to vote for me November 3rd.
Well, that's all the time that we have today, but we certainly enjoyed speaking with you, and all the best to you in the coming general election.
Thank you so much.
When I was young, I was plagued by fear and self-pity. Drinking made me care less about my insecurities.
My life was in shambles, and I was trying to figure out how to pick up the pieces.
At first, I never drank on the job, but eventually I did.
Removing alcohol wasn't enough. It left me depressed and lonely. That's where AA offered a solution.
The people I met thought like me. For the first time in my life, I felt like I wasn't so crazy.
I remember sitting in the AA meeting and thinking, I finally found a place where I belong.
I never thought I could have made it through those hard times as the happy person I am today.
AA not only keeps me sober, it helps me live a much better life.
I found out I can do this thing, one day at a time. I've never been happier in my life. If you have a problem with alcohol, contact AA. It works for me.
And for me.
And for me.
Hi, I'm Tariq Sadek, intern here at DCTV. The skills I'm learning with DCTV are preparing me for a career in media production. The knowledge I'm receiving is second to none. Normally students don't receive this type of training, so I feel extremely lucky to have this opportunity to work with such a highly experienced crew. I'm learning how to manage a production, and I've learned how to work with a team. I have basic camera, gaffing, and editing skills, and I recently got my chance to edit together some original pieces for DCTV. This is my DCTV story. DCTV is meaningful media making an impact.
Welcome back. You're watching Candidate Conversations on DCTV. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with candidate Christopher Cole, running for the office of DC Council Member, Ward 8, in the general election. Welcome, and thank you for being here, candidate Cole.
Thank you.
So let's start. Our first question is on the topic of DC statehood. Should the District of Columbia become the 51st state? In your opinion, why or why not?
In my opinion, I do believe that the District of Columbia should become the 51st state and should obtain statehood. And one of the main reasons why is because when we're talking about the monies that are allocated to different jurisdictions, we understand that DC right now is not equitable when it comes to the other 50 states. We want to make sure that our residents here in the District of Columbia have equal access when it comes down to funding for education, for housing, for all areas that affect our daily lives. So again, I do support DC becoming the 51st state.
Our community and our world are currently fighting a major pandemic. As a community leader, what would you do to address the range of issues caused by COVID-19?
Well, what I would do under this pandemic to ensure that we can make the transition smoothly or as smooth as possible is make sure that we have funding to put an outreach team in the District of Columbia to address our residents when they come down to mental health. And the reason being is because we know that individuals are going through a lot of stress. Individuals are going through a lot of trauma. Individuals are losing their jobs. Individuals are going through the process of not understanding if they're going to maintain their apartments or their homes. There's just a lot going on. We have children that are out of school and children that are at home. Parents aren't so used to that. That's just another whole drama and trauma and job all in itself. So when we talk about mental health and how individuals are thinking, how individuals are feeling, how individuals are acting, also how individuals are making choices, how they're dealing with others, and how they're handling stress is a big part of how we deal with this pandemic. It is so important to get to how individuals are handling their stress, how individuals are dealing with each other, how they're communicating. So the big thing that we would do is focus on mental health, getting the outreach team into our community, and make sure we're engaging with our community, talking to our community, and getting to their head, understanding the pains that they're going through, the traumas that they're going through, the trials, the tribulations, and have therapists, have people on hand to communicate with them, have some type of 24-hour call hotline so the individuals can call, so they can have someone to speak with, so they can have an outlet to talk to, so we can sort of attempt to decrease that.
As a leader, what steps would you like to take, if any, to achieve a just, equitable, and inclusive city, and why?
The steps that I would take to bring to a just, inclusive city, it goes back to what I just talked about again, mental health. You know, we know that mental health deals with the social, the psychological, and emotional well-being of individuals, of our residents. And when we talk about equability, we're talking about how individuals are thinking, again, how they're feeling, and how they're acting. So if we understand that we have groups of individuals here, here, and here, and one group thinks this way, one group thinks this way, and one group thinks this way, right? You have some that may excel and some that don't. A lot of it goes to the thinking, because the thinking goes to how we deal with other people, how we communicate with other people. And dealing with other people and communicating with other people is a huge part of success. It's a huge part of success. No matter how many times people tell us that we don't need nobody, no, we do. And it's important for our residents to understand that we need to come together. If we want the same resources that other people have, then it's important for us to be, for our residents in Ward 8, in the ward that tops the charts in every area, that are below the charts in every area when we talk about housing, when we talk about employment, when we talk about crime, when we, all the way across the board. So if we can get our people just to start thinking a little better in Ward 8, just to understand how to enhance their quality of life through how they think, feel, and act, we can do a good job.
We appreciate your response. Now, Washington, D.C. has a long history as a leader in providing early childhood education and leads the nation in access to pre-K for both 3- and 4-year-old children. The district is investing over $100 million to expand early childhood education. What do you see as the most important education priorities for serving these young constituents?
I think the educational priority is mental health. Mental health is an education, contrary to what people want to believe. Mental health is a part of education, and I do believe that has been taken away. And a lot of parents, first of all, I think it's imperative for parents to, first of all, understand the importance of mental health being a part of their child's education. And not just a part of their child's education, but also a part of their education. Because, see, in order to have a treatment plan that is effective for the parent and the student and the staff at the educational facility to come together and make sure that our students are the best and most productive and the most effective, and they can go out into the world and that they can succeed, this treatment plan needs to be done together, and our community needs to do this together, not just from a government or educational standpoint, but from a parental standpoint and also from a child standpoint. So for me, the biggest part of the education is that mental health. When we're talking about from the 3rd grade, we want to start that because we want to begin to affect change and how our youth positively, how they positively think, how they positively act, and how they positively can feel. That's where we want to affect the change at. And that's where I believe that the part of education that I will focus on is that mental health component.
Candidate Cole, in the last few moments we have left, tell us what additional information would you like the residents of Washington, D.C. to know about you?
What I would like Washington, D.C. to know about me is that my slogan is that it's simple. Solution starts with self. We focus on community, we focus on commitment, and we focus on community, we focus on culture, and we focus on commitment. These things are so important to understand your community, to understand your culture, and your commitment. And also know that our platform revolves around mental health. We understand that if we want to affect change when we talk about crime, when we talk about safety, when we talk about housing, when we talk about education, when we talk about workforce development, when we talk about inclusive development, every part of our platform, when you understand these things right here all deal with mental health. When we start affecting change from the grassroots level, I mean way beyond, because we already have things that are set in place for our residents. The problem is our residents don't have access to the information, and they just don't have access to the mental health component to help them be able to transition and navigate through this system effectively. So what we're going to bring to the table is we're going to bring that. We're going to bring that engaged in the community. We're going to make sure that we have funding put in the programs that primarily deal with mental health. Primarily mental health, because again, once again, all the way across the board, we can affect change if we can start with looking at how our individuals think, how they feel, how they act, how they make decisions, how you make decisions when it comes down to housing, that continue, how you continue to live a long life where you live with your job, coming from a job to a career. We want to change these things. We want to help people understand how to go from a job to a career, how to go from apartment and maybe TANF or Section 8 to obtaining their own home. So these are things that we will bring to the community, and we bring that access to information, cut all the red tape, no more red tape, and make sure that our residents have access to all the information, opportunities, and services provided by this great city and its stakeholders.
Candidate Cole, we certainly appreciate the time you've spent with us, and we hope all the best for you in the coming election.
Thank you.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Washington residents are being threatened by utility scams each day. Utility companies typically don't show up at a home or business without an appointment, and they don't threaten to disconnect service without warning.
I've been authorized to disable your gas for overdue payment.
If you're faced with a situation like this, stay calm. Don't let anyone inside your home. Then call the number on your utility bill to verify charges, and contact the Public Service Commission or the police to report scammers. Fight utility scams. The power is yours.
Hi, I'm Alvin Jones, native Washingtonian and president of AJ Productions, and also the managing partner of the Alvin Jones Communications Group. You may know me from my work at Black Entertainment Television as the unseen VJ, News Channel 8, Planet Vehicle, Planet Jazz, The Quiet Storm on WHUR, Sirius XM, and C-SPAN. But what you may not know is that I got my start in media communications right here at DCTV as a member. DCTV has been serving the DC community for more than 3 decades by preparing members throughout this region for careers in media, whether it be in front of or behind the camera. And also the education training program is comprehensive, and you can even gain access to the equipment and the resources that a creative person needs to bring a vision to a production reality. So that's my DCTV story. DCTV is meaningful media making an impact.
Welcome back. You're watching Candidate Conversations on DCTV. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with candidate Peter Bolton, running for the office of DC Council Member for Ward 2 in the general election. Welcome, and thank you for being here today, candidate Bolton.
My pleasure.
Candidate Bolton, should the District of Columbia become the 51st state? In your opinion, why or why not?
Absolutely, it should become the 51st state. My party was actually founded with the explicit intention of making DC a state in the 1970s. And we had representation on the council, first with Julius Hobson and then Hilda Mason. And then in the late 1990s, the Statehood Party merged with the Green Party in DC to form the DC Statehood Green Party. My platform specifically pledges to fight for statehood using aggressive tactics. So, for example, I think that if the federal government is not going to grant DC statehood, then we should start taking punitive measures against the federal government. That could include disallowing them from using city amenities, disallowing them from hosting events at DC public schools, and so on. The reality is that the residents of the District of Columbia voted in a referendum a few years ago overwhelmingly, I believe by over 80%, in favor of statehood. And the federal government has still not done anything about it and granted the rightful wishes of DC residents. And the last thing that I would say is that we are still underrepresented compared to the rest of the United States. We don't have a Congress member in the House of Representatives. We don't have 2 senators like other states do. And even the 1 representative that we do have is non-voting. So it's a complete threat to democracy. It's a disgrace that DC hasn't become a state already. And if I'm elected, I will fight tooth and nail to achieve DC statehood, preferably by 2025.
Thank you. Our community and our world are currently fighting a major pandemic. As a community leader, what would you do to address the range of issues caused by COVID-19?
One of the reasons why the United States leads the world in coronavirus COVID-19 infections is that, unlike the rest of the developed world, it doesn't have a system of universal public health care that's free at the point of service. So, in my opinion, the only way to really address this situation and give people the treatment that they need is to form a single-payer type system that is District of Columbia based, where anyone, regardless of age or any other factor, has access to healthcare as they do in Europe, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and so on.
As a leader, what steps would you like to take, if any, to achieve a just, equitable, and inclusive city, and why?
That's quite a big question there. My platform is considerably to the left of the Democratic Party, who, in my view at least, have essentially become one more right-wing, neoliberal capitalist party. I think that in order to promote greater diversity and a more even spread of our wealth, there needs to be a few things. First of all, I support union card check neutrality so that anyone who wants to join a union can do so. My platform contains a pledge for $20 per hour minimum wage, mandatory 5 weeks of vacation, statutory paid parental leave, and also paid sick leave. In terms of the racial disparities that have long plagued the city, I support, and my party has always supported, setting up a committee, city-based, or hopefully state-based, that will organize a system of restitution, reparations for individuals living in the district who are the descendants of enslaved peoples. And that's always been part of our platform. And then the final thing that I would say is that the so-called war on drugs has been a huge exacerbator of both economic and racial inequality. So I support unconditional amnesty for all persons who have been convicted of drug possession. I support a ban-the-box measure so that people don't have to report whether they have a criminal record when applying for jobs, because that's
made it very, very difficult for returning citizens to re-enter the labor force. Support full legalization of cannabis, including selling cannabis, and that's an important issue that in terms of statehood as well, because the federal government overruled full adult use cannabis legalization in the district, in spite of the fact that residents had voted overwhelmingly in favor of full legalization in a ballot measure a few years ago. So those are just some of my policies, but I encourage your viewers to check out my website where I have more detail.
We appreciate your response. Now, Washington, D.C. has a long history as a leader in providing early childhood education and leads the nation in access to pre-K for both 3- and 4-year-old children. The district is investing over $100 million to expand early childhood education. What do you see as the most important education priorities for serving these young constituents?
Well, first of all, I support this increase in funding for early childhood development. I'm also a strong supporter of the Birth to 3 DC Act, which I think has a lot of merit and has already gotten a lot of support across the political spectrum, by the way. But my ideas about education stretch beyond simply giving more funding. In my platform, I argue that the district should set up a committee to try to learn from models of education in other countries, in particular the Nordic nation of Finland, which has pioneered a progressive form of education and as a result often ranks at or near the top of studies that rank educational outcomes across the world in different countries. So I believe that we need to look beyond the traditional left-right spectrum that has dominated for so many years and completely think outside the box and start afresh.
Candidate Bolton, in the last few moments we have left, tell us what additional information would you like to share with the residents of Washington, D.C. about you?
I'd like to make clear that the Democratic Party has failed this city. Washington for a long time has essentially been a one-party state with Democrats on the council and 2 independents who usually just switched their party for one election. The Democratic Party is essentially a right-wing party, a neoliberal party that cozies up to developers and other private interests who give to their campaign in the hope of something in return. And the Democrats on the council and the mayor's office have been more than happy to be part of this whole sordid quid pro quo. I believe strongly there needs to be a second force in DC politics to the left of the Democrats, because this relationship with developers has ended up with situations like Jack Evans, who ended up resigning in disgrace due to multiple ethics violations. His successor, Brooke Pinto, is already facing similar allegations and has already shown herself to be a right-winger by voting against tax increases on the wealthy and also trying to draw some kind of equivalence between renters and landlords, and said that they are both suffering and therefore presumably is not going to take strong action, whether it be rent control, rent cancellation, a moratorium on evictions, and so on. I joined the DC Statehood Green Party because I believe strongly that there needs to be a radical, progressive alternative to take the city forward into a new era. You can check out my platform at boltonforward2.org, where you can read about my policies, which include bringing all utilities into public municipal ownership, abolishing all user fees on the Metro and Metro bus system, a public bank for DC, and an end to public-private partnerships in the WMATA system.
Well, that brings us to the end of the time we have for now with you, but we certainly appreciate you coming to our show. All the best to you in the coming general election. That concludes this episode of Candidate Conversations. We look forward to seeing you for another episode of Candidate Conversations on DC TV.